Hi Sketchaday, thanks for checking out this video and drawing tutorial. We're going to use ballpoint pens. I'm sure you've got some laying around, and paper. Lots of different papers you can use, but anything will work if you just want to get some ideas down on paper. But let's jump right in. I'm using blue ballpoint pens and Bristol board. There's several colors out there. And while we're doing the warm-up exercises and the drawings, have a good angle with your pen. And to start, I like to just do some circles. These are some exercises that you can play around with and modify as you like. Try some of them with heavy pressure, some with low pressure, real light pressure, and you get something that looks like this. This is also another opportunity to experiment with different pens. See what kind of differences you can see. One of them has a much darker ink, you can see there. Another exercise that's kind of fun is just to fill up diagonal lines and not cross the boundaries. Try real squiggly patterns. Okay. This is a one-point perspective drawing exercise, and it's fun to use geometric solids and just practice shading, cast shadows, surfaces, and you can modify this a lot of ways to help you prepare for a drawing you're doing. Try the different shapes, curve your hatches, watch the lines and how it develops. It's not necessarily a rendered drawing completely, just a sketch, but you can see there that there's some indication of cast shadows, some nice forms. We're building up the tones little by little. Experiment with your different pens, different papers. And here you can see I'm making a little value scale, and this is really the drawing process. You layer in hatching in opposite directions, and you keep going and keep going and keep going, and then you can see a real dark to light. And I'm doing it there on 3 different kinds of paper, so you can see the differences between what a Bristol board, watercolor paper, and pastel will do. And you'll notice that the Bristol board is a little smoother, and so it's up to you and your taste what you like best, but you can see I'm just going in different directions and really putting more pressure as we go. You can see that pastel and watercolor paper have a little bit more tooth, so a little more bumps you can see. So I encourage you to try these warm-up exercises in many different colors and papers and pens. Come up with a lot of interesting designs. I've got some shown here. And this is the 10 drawings that is available in the book if you're interested. And here's today's drawing. I found this reference image on pixabay.com, and I put a grid over it with Microsoft Word, and I'm going to use the grid on a piece of paper. And here you can see I've made the grid, and I'm basically putting in all the lines that match up and correspond to the grid. In other words, whatever's in the bottom 2 rows of boxes, you draw in the bottom 2 rows of boxes on your paper, and then you go to the next row, next row, next row, until you've got the image outline. And once that's in place, you outline it with a pen and then erase it. Pay attention to where the highlights are in your reference photo and apply a light layer of hatching everywhere except those highlight areas. The white of the paper will be the highlights. You can see that you can start adding in a second layer and a third layer and a fourth layer, and try to use your hatching in a direction that follows the contour of the pumpkin or whatever surface you're drawing. Okay, and then you lightly do a second layer and a third layer, and I'm repeating this process throughout the whole pumpkin. Go several layers at a time, really light. It's better to do multiple layers that are light than a couple of heavy layers and then have a mistake where you didn't want so much darkness. So just build them up one at a time, just stacking them on top of each other. And when you get to the stem of the pumpkin, you apply a light layer of shading like this, and then you start to introduce detail lines, short hatches that are maybe a little more pressure. You can see there that they stand out from the other ones to indicate detail in the pumpkin and shaded areas, and it gives it that nice look of wood, or I guess it's not wood, the stem of a pumpkin. The reference photo has the pumpkin sitting on a stump or a post, and so I tried to recreate a lot of the detail of the post there. You can see the detail in the wood and the different areas where there's splits and it's aged, and there's a little bit of a cast shadow, and I'm just building it up little by little. And what you'll find is that when you introduce those detail lines, when you put another layer on top, it really darkens those other ones. So it's really interesting, and you can go back and build up your detail and your shaded areas. And then you want your shade areas to match as a picture as a whole. So you can see I'm going in and I'm making the ribs of the pumpkin a little darker to match up with the dark level that I have in the post there. And so you always take a step back and look at the whole thing together and see where do I need to adjust the values. This pen that I'm using is a fine tip pen, and you'll notice that it puts in a really thin line that's dark and punchy. So experiment with different thicknesses. For the shaded areas, I'm using a 1.6 millimeter tip, and it has a really dark value to it, and you'll see the difference right away when you use one. And if you don't have one, just keep building up layers with the medium or the regular Bic pen. Take your time with the details you see in the reference photo. There you can see I'm putting in some of the ribs of the ring of the tree as the yearly growth of the rings, you know what I'm saying? And just indicating a little bit of shade. It all kind of gives you an initial wow when you see it, you know. Same with the pumpkin. You can decide which ones you want to use and which details you don't want to use. So here's my final drawing. I hope you enjoyed this and found some ideas and inspiration to try your own. And if you're interested, I have 10 step-by-step drawings available. It's linked on the lesson for Sketchaday. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.